A girl gave her only food away and triggered an unstoppable chain of events. Her simple act of kindness was witnessed by dangerous eyes, leading to a roaring confrontation and a shocking conspiracy exposed. What happens when a hardened biker's code of honor clashes with a heartless scam? If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights in the community center hummed like tired bees. The air smelled of old bleach and despair. Mercy, 17 and too thin for her own good, stared at the lump of lukewarm macaroni and cheese on her paper plate. It was her first meal in 24 hours. Her stomach growled, a painful, twisting knot. Then she heard the whimpering. At a small, round table in the corner, 3 toddlers, 2 boys and a girl, their faces smudged with dirt, were poking at empty plates. A woman in a too-clean polo shirt with Hope's Harbor stitched on the pocket stood nearby, her arms crossed. "Rules are rules," the woman Jennifer said, her voice crisp. "If your guardian isn't here to sign for you, you don't eat. It's for accountability." The little girl, Lucy, began to cry softly. Mercy didn't think, she just moved. She walked over, placed her full plate in the center of the toddler's table, and found 3 plastic spoons. "Here," she said, her voice soft. She divided the food evenly between the 3 small plates. "You eat that, okay?" Lucy's tears stopped, replaced by wide-eyed wonder. The boys, Mark and little Paul, dug in with desperate, tiny hands. Jennifer scoffed, "Your martyrdom doesn't change the rules. You go hungry now." "That's fine," Mercy said, turning her back. She went to sit on the floor against a wall, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to make herself smaller. The hunger pangs were sharp, but the tightness in her chest was worse. She watched the kids eat. That was enough. She didn't see the man watching her from the doorway, leading to the administrative offices. His name was Daniel. He was built like a brick wall, with a beard that hid a sharp jaw and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a leather cut over a simple t-shirt, the patches on it speaking a silent, intimidating language. The Reaper's patch on the back was faded but clear. He was waiting for his parole officer, Mr. Davies, who was running late. Daniel had been leaning in the doorway, annoyed, when he saw the girl give her food away. Something cracked inside him, a memory old and rusty, his little sister going hungry so he could eat. He pushed the thought away, but his eyes stayed on Mercy. His parole officer, a nervous man named James, finally arrived. "Daniel, sorry, paperwork." They went into a small office. Daniel did the dance, gave the right answers, signed the forms, but his mind was elsewhere. On his way out, he stopped near Mercy, who was still on the floor. He crouched down, his knees popping. Up close, she looked even younger, with fierce green eyes that held no self-pity. "Why'd you do that?" Daniel asked, his voice a low rumble. Mercy looked up, startled. He looked scary, but his eyes were steady. "They were hungry," she said, like it was the simplest math in the world. "You're hungry too." She just shrugged. Daniel nodded slowly. He reached into the pocket of his cut and pulled out a $20 bill folded tight. He held it out. "Get yourself something later, don't let her see." He gave a slight nod toward Jennifer. Mercy shook her head. "I can't. They check our things. They take any money for safekeeping. It never comes back." A red flag went up in Daniel's mind, a big one. Who? They. Hope's Harbor, the charity that runs this shelter. They have rules for everything. Daniel's parole officer, James, was hovering. "Daniel, we should go." Daniel stood up, his gaze sweeping the room. He saw the kids, now finished, licking their plates. He saw the other shelter residents, heads down, moving quietly. He saw Jennifer, now on her phone, smiling. He filed it all away. "Stay strong, kid," he said to Mercy and walked out. But he didn't go home. He rode his Harley to the clubhouse, a low-slung building on the industrial edge of town. The Reapers weren't angels. They ran protection, moved certain goods, settled disputes their own way. But they had a code. You didn't hurt kids. You didn't prey on the helpless. What Mercy described smelled wrong. The clubhouse was loud with the clatter of pool balls and classic rock. His VP, a grizzled man named David, handed him a beer. "How'd the leash check go?" "Fine," Daniel grunted. Then he told David about the girl and the kids and the money being taken. David's face darkened. Hope's Harbor, that big shiny charity, the one with the billboards. The same. Sounds like a bunch of bureaucratic bull to me, said a younger member, Paul, from the pool table. Maybe, Daniel said, but my gut says it's more. The woman there, she had a look, not tired like you get from real charity work. She had a smug look, like a cat that got the cream and is charging the mice to look at it. David chuckled. Poetic. What do you want to do? I want to look into it, quietly. David nodded. The Reapers had contacts everywhere, cops on the payroll, city clerks, social workers who owed favors. Daniel made some calls. The next day he went back to the community center, not wearing his cut this time. He pretended to be a volunteer. He brought boxes of donated donuts. He watched. He saw Jennifer and another man, who she called Mr. Evans, arrive in a new SUV. He saw them bring in a single small box of granola bars for the entire shelter. He saw them count the residents, make notes on clipboards, and leave quickly, not talking to anyone. He also saw Mercy. She was playing with the toddlers in a dusty corner of the yard, making them laugh with a game using bottle caps. Her smile was bright, but it faded whenever an adult in a Hope's Harbor shirt came near. Daniel offered her a donut. She took it, nibbling carefully. Thank you, she said. Those kids, Daniel said, keeping his voice casual. Where are their parents? Mercy's face clouded. Lucy's mom is in the hospital. Mark and Paul's dad, he's looking for work. Hope's Harbor promised them a safe place with food and care while they get back on their feet, but the food is never enough, and they make the parents pay a weekly care fee that keeps going up. If you can't pay, you can't visit your kids. Mr. Evans says it's to teach responsibility. Daniel felt a cold anger start in his gut. It was a scam, a beautiful, cruel scam. Promise desperate people help, take their kids, starve them, and bleed the parents dry for the privilege of seeing their own children. One of his contacts, a data clerk at the city, called him that evening. Daniel, you asked about Hope's Harbor. Their filings are a mess. They're registered as a for-profit family services corporation, not a charity. They've got a dozen shell companies. And get this, their director, a guy named Richard Sterling, drives a Ferrari, lives in a gated community. Another contact, a nurse at the county hospital, confirmed it. We've had kids come in from their shelters, mildly malnourished, always the same story, not enough food. When we report it, the city does an inspection, but they always get a clean bill. Someone's getting paid off. Daniel presented it to the club that night. It's a racket, a slick suit and tie racket. They're starving kids for profit. David slammed his fist on the bar. That's not just wrong, that's an insult. We are the criminals, we don't starve Barbies. What's the play, Prez? Asked Paul. Daniel's eyes were hard. We expose it, but we don't do it like cops. We do it like us. Loud. We make it so public, so messy, that no one can look away or sweep it under the rug. The plan was simple. They'd gather evidence the direct way. A few of the younger, less recognizable members would get themselves admitted to different Hope's Harbor shelters as down-on-their-luck men with hidden cameras. They'd record the conditions, the lack of food, the threats about money. Meanwhile, Daniel wanted to get Mercy and those toddlers out. He couldn't just kidnap them. That would bring real heat. He needed a reason. He went back to see her 2 days later. He found her alone in the yard, the toddlers having been taken inside for a nap in a crowded, hot room. She looked pale. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, she said, but her voice was weak. She hadn't eaten properly in days, giving her rations to the little ones. Listen to me, Daniel said, his voice low and intense. Things are going to happen soon, big, loud things. When they do, I need you to trust me. I need you to get those 3 kids and be ready to move. Can you do that? Mercy looked into his eyes. She saw no lie there, only a fierce, protective certainty. Why do you care? Because the code I live by says you don't let something like this stand. And because you're brave, Mercy, braver than most people I know. There was a charged moment between them. He was a man in his 30s, a hardened biker. She was a teenage girl with nothing. But in that look, there was no predator, no prey. There were 2 fighters recognizing the same enemy. The air felt electric, thick with unspoken understanding and a promise of danger. He reached out, not touching her, but his hand close to hers. "Be ready." The club's undercover work hit gold. Paul, pretending to be a homeless vet, recorded Evans outright saying, "The trick is to keep the food costs under 3%. The state minimum is 20%, but who's checking? The inspectors are our friends." Another member got video of a pantry stocked with expired, dented cans, while a ledger showed massive food procurement expenses. They had the proof. Now it was time for the show. Daniel chose a Saturday when the community center would be busy with a scheduled donor visit from Hope's Harbor's board. It was a PR stunt. They'd bring a photographer, give a few symbolic boxes of food, and leave. That morning, Daniel called every number in the Reaper's book, not just their chapter, but friends, allies, even a few rivals who hated this kind of thing as much as they did. The message was simple: a charity is starving kids for money. We're putting a stop to it. Be at the Oak Street Community Center at 1 p.m. Bring your cameras. At 12:45, Mercy's heart was pounding. She'd quietly gathered Lucy, Mark, and Paul, telling them they were going to play a special game outside. She had their few belongings in a ragged backpack. She stood by the back door, watching. The first rumble was felt before it was heard, a deep, throaty vibration in the concrete, then another, and another. Jennifer and Mr. Evans were outside, setting up a table with a white cloth for the photo op. They looked up, confused. From one end of the street, a single motorcycle appeared. Daniel. He rode slowly, purposefully, and turned into the parking lot, stopping his bike right in front of their pristine table. Then from the other end of the street, a wave of them appeared. Dozens, scores, Harleys, Hondas, choppers, trikes, men and women in leather, patches flashing in the sun. They weren't roaring or revving wildly. They rode in a slow, solemn, terrifying procession. The sound was a continuous, rolling thunder that shook the windows. They filled the parking lot. They lined the street. They got off their bikes and stood, arms crossed, a silent wall of leather and denim and muscle. The photographer for Hope's Harbor lowered his camera, his face white. Jennifer stammered, "What is the meaning of this?" Daniel stepped forward. He didn't yell. His voice carried in the sudden, rumbling silence. "We are here for the kids. We are here to see the conditions, the real conditions. This is private property. This is a harassment," Evans blustered, pulling out his phone. "Call the cops," David said, stepping up beside Daniel. He held up a thumb drive. "We'll give them this. It's got video of you admitting to fraud, audio of you threatening residents, financial records showing your shell companies." He turned to the growing crowd of neighbors and real reporters who had followed the rumble. "Hope's Harbor is a scam. They take kids from desperate parents, starve them, and steal their money." Chaos erupted. Reporters surged forward. Evans tried to run inside, but two large bikers gently but firmly blocked his path. Daniel turned, searching. He saw Mercy at the back door, three small hands clutching her legs. He nodded to her. This was the moment. While the spotlight was on Evans and Jennifer, while the cameras were rolling, Mercy slipped out the back door with the three toddlers. Paul, the younger biker, was there. He had a car seat already installed in his truck, a surprisingly practical detail for a Reaper. "I got nephews," he said with a grin, seeing Mercy's look. He helped her buckle the wide-eyed kids in. "Where are we going?" Mercy asked, her voice trembling with adrenaline. "Somewhere safe, a friend of the club's. She runs a real shelter. No one will find you there." As Paul drove away, Mercy looked back. She saw Daniel, a mountain of a man, holding a weeping Lucy's mother, who had just arrived, and pointing her toward a cop who was actually listening. She saw bikers handing out real food from their own saddlebags to the shelter residents pouring out of the building. She saw the empire of the Reapers, not crumbling, but turning its formidable power toward a single, just cause. Back at the lot, the scene was reaching its peak. The police had arrived, but instead of breaking up the bikers, they started arresting Evans and Jennifer on the spot, thanks to the evidence handed over. The story was already trending online. Bikers bust, alleged charity scam. Later that night, at the real shelter, a warm, cluttered house run by a no-nonsense woman named Stella, Mercy had just put the exhausted toddlers to bed. She walked out to the porch, where Daniel was waiting, leaning on the railing. The distant rumble of bikes was gone, replaced by crickets. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You started it," he said, looking at her, "with one plate of mac and cheese. What happens now?" "To Hope's Harbor, it's finished. The news has it, the DA has it. Parents are coming to get their kids from all their locations. To the club," he shrugged a shoulder. "We go back to our business, but now people know you don't do that stuff in our town, not where we can see it." There was that electricity again. He was a world away from her, a dangerous man with a complicated life. She was just a kid with nothing, but in the quiet dark, none of that seemed to matter. He saw the strength in her. She saw the honor in him. He reached out this time and gently touched her shoulder, a firm, brotherly but charged squeeze. "You're safe now, Mercy. The kids are safe. Get some rest." He turned to leave, the engine of his bike sounding like a promise in the night. Mercy hugged herself, watching his taillight disappear. The story wasn't over. The fallout would be huge. The reapers would face scrutiny. The hungry would need feeding. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a connection had been forged in the fire of that day, a spark that neither of them could yet understand. Inside the Reapers' clubhouse, the mood was a strange mix of triumph and tension. Beer flowed, and the usual rock music played, but the conversations were clipped, eyes glancing toward the door. They won a battle, not a war. David clinked his bottle against Daniel. City's going nuts. News vans are parked outside 3 different Hope's Harbor offices. Cops are actually doing their jobs for once. "For now," Daniel grunted. He was scrolling through his phone. The headlines were good. Motorcycle club exposes child charity fraud. Bikers deliver justice. The comments were split, some calling them heroes, others saying it was a PR stunt for a criminal gang. He didn't care about the PR, he cared about the heat. Sterling, the guy in the Ferrari, he's not in cuffs yet. "He's lawyered up tighter than a drum," said Paul, joining them. "Word is he's blamming it all on Evans and Jennifer, saying they were rogue operators. He's claiming he, heartbroken and deceived." Daniel's jaw tightened. He doesn't get to walk away. He built that empire on hungry kids. The cold anger was back. This was the part he hated, the cleanup, the politics, the way slime like Sterling always found a crack to slip through. Across town, in Stella's warm, chaotic house, Mercy was discovering a new kind of exhaustion. It was the tiredness that comes after constant fear lifts. Stella, a plump woman with kind eyes and a voice like gravel, had fed them all a huge pot of stew. The toddlers, bathed and in clean pajamas, were now asleep in a real bed, piled together like puppies. "You eat too, honey," Stella said, pushing a second bowl toward Mercy. "Your skin and bones." Mercy ate slowly, savoring each bite. It was the first real meal she'd had in weeks. "Thank you, Stella, for everything." "Don't thank me, thank your scary knight in leather," Stella chuckled. "Daniel called in a favor, an old one. I owe his club, let's just say, my silence on a certain matter years back. This is a nice way to square things." She looked Mercy over. "He's got a soft spot for you, a rare thing." Mercy felt her cheeks warm. "He's just decent." "In a world of indecent men, decent stands out like a lighthouse," Stella said wisely. "Now get some sleep. Your room's at the top of the stairs." The next day, the real work began. With Evans and Jennifer in custody and singing to save their own skins, the police had warrants for Hope's Harbor's financial records. But Daniel knew bureaucracy moved slow, and Sterling had money to make evidence disappear. The Reapers had to keep the pressure on. Their method was unconventional but effective. They didn't protest, they escorted. Whenever a news crew went to film outside a Hope's Harbor property, a few Reapers on their bikes would just happen to be there, idling on the street, giving quiet, grim interviews about what they'd seen. Their sheer, silent presence made Sterling's remaining staff nervous. Delivery trucks found their routes, accidentally blocked by broken-down motorcycles. City council members, who had accepted donations from Sterling, started finding their driveways lined with polite, leather-clad men holding signs with the names of the starved kids. It was psychological warfare, and it was working. Meanwhile, Mercy found a purpose at Stella. She helped with the toddlers, her natural gentleness a balm to their confusion. Lucy called her Mia Mia, but Mercy was restless. She'd seen the heart of the beast. She wanted to help tear it out. 3 days after the parking lot event, Daniel came to Stella. He brought a bag of toys for the kids and a new, sturdy backpack for Mercy. He found her in the backyard, pushing Mark and Paul on a rusty swing set. "They look better," Daniel said, leaning on the fence. "They're eating," Mercy said simply. She walked over to him, leaving the kids to swing. "What's happening with Sterling?" Daniel's face darkened. "He's hiding behind lawyers and paperwork. He might walk. The DA is talking about insufficient direct evidence of his knowledge. It's a joke." "Then it's not over," Mercy said, her green eyes fierce. "No. What can I do?" Daniel looked at her, this brave, stubborn girl. "You can stay safe. You're a witness. If this goes to trial, your testimony about the conditions, about the food being withheld, is crucial." "I'll do it," she said immediately, then softer, "but there has to be something more. Now, something that he can't lawyer his way out of." An idea was forming in Daniel's mind, a dangerous one. It involved the club's less legal skill set. Maybe there is, but it's risky. Before he could say more, his phone buzzed. It was David. His voice was tense. "Prez, we've got a problem. Sterling didn't run. He's fighting dirty. He just hired security, not the rent-a-cop kind, the military contractor kind, guys with mean eyes and clean haircuts. They're at his main office building, and a few have been spotted casing the clubhouse." Daniel's blood went cold. Sterling wasn't just defending himself, he was going on the offensive. He saw the Reapers as a rival gang to be crushed. This had just escalated from a public shamming to a potential war. "Gather everyone at the clubhouse," Daniel said quietly. "Now." He turned to Mercy. "Change of plans. Sterling brought in guns, professional ones. You and the kids are not safe here anymore. Stella's place is known." Mercy's breath hitched. "Where do we go?" Daniel made a decision. "Somewhere only the club knows. Our safe house, it's remote, it's secure." He saw the fear in her eyes, but also the trust. "I'll take you myself, right now." He loaded Mercy and the 3 confused toddlers into his truck, not his bike. He drove out of the city, into the wooded hills, following a maze of dirt roads until they reached a modest, heavily fortified cabin. It was stocked with supplies, generator-powered, and invisible from the air. "You'll stay here with Paul and Rita," he said, referring to a club member and his old lady who was a former EMT. "No one comes or goes without my say-so. You understand?" Mercy nodded, holding a sleeping Lucy. "Be careful, Daniel." He paused at the door. The charged moment was back, amplified by danger. He cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing her skin. It was a gesture far more intimate than anything before. "I'll end this, then I'll come back." Back at the clubhouse, the mood was grim. David laid it out. "Sterling hired Blackthorn Solutions. They're ex-special forces, mercenaries. They don't scare. They're here to intimidate us, to make us back off. They probably have orders to dig up dirt, to plant evidence, to cause accidents. We hit first," said a hot-headed member named Jack. "And start a shooting war in the streets," David shot back. "We're not soldiers, and we're not killing cops by accident when they get in the middle. We need to be smarter. We need to hit what Sterling cares about most, his money and his reputation." Daniel spoke. "David's right, no direct fights. We find his treasure chest and burn it." The club's hacker, a skinny guy they called Chip, who they kept on a generous retainer, was summoned. "I need you to find Sterling's real money, not the corporate accounts. The hidden ones, the offshore havens, the crypto wallets, the shell companies within shell companies. Find the flow, and then we damn it." While Chip worked his magic, the Reapers used old-fashioned muscle. They tracked down the warehouse where Hope's Harbor kept its donated goods, the high-end items that never made it to shelters. One quiet night, they emptied it, distributing the contents to real food banks and shelters across the city. They left a single note. From the Reapers, compliments of Richard Sterling. It was a thumb in the eye, and Sterling felt it. His response was swift. The next day, 2 Reapers' businesses were hit. A legit auto body shop Daniel owned was smeared with graffiti and its windows broken. A bar run by David's cousin was hit with a surprise health inspection that found rats conveniently planted. The pressure was building on both sides. At the safe house, Mercy was climbing the walls with worry. Rita, the EMT, was kind, and Paul was funny, playing with the kids, but Mercy needed to do something. She remembered something. When she was at the community center, she'd sometimes been forced to help file papers for Jennifer. She'd seen routing numbers, account names that didn't match Hope's Harbor. She thought nothing of it then. Now she asked Paul for a satellite phone to call Daniel. When she got through, the connection was crackly. "Daniel, I remember things, numbers, account names. I think they were for moving money. I saw Granite Peak Holdings and Marlowe Trust a lot." Daniel, in the clubhouse war room, immediately put her on speaker for Chip. "Say them again, Mercy, slowly." She repeated what she remembered. Chip's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Yes, that's it, Mercy, you're a genius. Those are two of his deepest shell layers. I've been trying to pierce them for days. Those names give me a pathway." He started typing furiously. I'm seeing transfers, millions to accounts in the Caymans, and there's a scheduled transfer for tomorrow, a big one. He's trying to move liquidity before assets get frozen." Daniel's eyes met David's. This was the break. "Can you stop it? Can you redirect it?" Chip grinned, a wolfish smile. "Stop it? I can send it on a little trip to a few choice places, the IRS Fraud Division, the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, and let's send a nice, sizable chunk to the city's actual child welfare department. Anonymously, of course." "Do it," Daniel said. The next morning, all hell broke loose in the financial world. Richard Sterling's carefully constructed empire of lies began to implode from the inside. Federal agencies received anonymous, impeccably detailed packets showing massive tax evasion and fraud. A mysterious multi-million-dollar donation appeared in the city's coffers earmarked for hungry children, and Sterling's own Cayman account was drained, the money scattered to the winds of the blockchain. Sterling panicked. He called off his Blackthorn mercenaries, desperate to use his remaining cash for legal defense. But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable, and now in the hands of powerful enemies he couldn't pay off. The Reapers watched from the shadows as the real authorities moved in. This time, they arrested Richard Sterling at his gated mansion. The footage was on every channel, the man in the hand-stitched suit being led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of utter shock. It was over. A week later, with Sterling in jail without bail, Daniel went back to the safe house. The tension was gone from his shoulders. He found Mercy outside, watching the toddlers chase fireflies in the dusk. She turned and saw him. Without a word, she ran to him and threw her arms around his waist, hugging him tightly. He was stunned for a second, then his arms wrapped around her, holding her close. It wasn't a romantic embrace, not quite. It was the deep, desperate hug of two survivors who had stood back to back in a storm. The kids piled around their legs, laughing. Daniel picked up Lucy, who played with his beard. "It's done," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "He's gone. The whole thing is being dismantled. The kids are being reunited with their families. Lucy's mom is out of the hospital. She's coming for her tomorrow." Tears streamed down Mercy's face, but she was smiling. "What about me?" Daniel put Lucy down and looked straight at Mercy. "That's up to you. You're 18 soon. You can do anything. Stella would take you on full-time to help at her shelter. You could go back to school. The clubby will make sure you have what you need. No strings." Mercy looked at him, at this complicated, dangerous, decent man. Her future was a blank page, but for the first time it was her page. "I think I'd like to stay near Stella and help." Daniel nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Good." Later, after the kids were in bed, they sat on the porch. The air between them was charged with all that had happened, all that had been said and unsaid. "You know," Mercy said softly, "when you first walked into that shelter, I was scared of you." "You should have been," Daniel said honestly. "But I'm not anymore." She looked at him, and in that look was the maturity her hard life had forced on her. "You have an empire, Daniel, and you didn't give it up. You used it for something good." He took her hand, lacing his rough fingers with her slender ones. It was a promise, a connection, a spark that could, in time, become a flame. "Maybe empires aren't just for taking," he said quietly. "Maybe they're for protecting too." In the city below, the Reapers' clubhouse was loud with celebration. Their world, their mafia lifestyle, remained intact, but it had been changed subtly. They were still outlaws, but now they were also the men who had ridden against a different kind of evil and won. And in a remote cabin in the woods, their president sat in the quiet dark, holding the hand of the girl who had started it all with a single, selfless act, knowing that some battles change you more than others, and that the most unexpected alliances are often the strongest. Thank you for watching. Can an act of pure selflessness ignite a war against hidden evil? If this story moved you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. How far would you go to protect a stranger?